Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unshackled for Life. We're unlocking prosperity and liberating wealth. I'm your host, John Green. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about budgeting. I'm going to explain why it is an important practice and how you can easily create a quick monthly budget for yourself to help get control of your finances. All right? So, again, I want to thank you for tuning into today's episode. The topic is budgeting, and it's not something that's fun, but it's something that is, it's a great discipline to have. And as you learn to budget and you create a monthly discipline of doing a budget, you will find that budgeting is basically, it's the key to financial success. All right. When people talk about budgeting might be like, it's work. It is work, as all things that involve discipline are. It does require some sense of practice and some sense of discipline. So I want to start with why we should budget. All right. Or why you should budget. If you find yourself living paycheck to paycheck, and not feeling confident about your finances, creating a budget is the perfect place to start, because a budget is going to help you get clarity about your finances. You're going to have a better understanding. When you make a budget, you'll have a better understanding of where your money is going. You'll also be able to make choices such as where to take money from in order to put money where you really want it to go. All right. So, one thing that's true about budgeting, once you get good at it, because the first month, don't expect it to be perfect. There's going to be things that pop up. We'll talk more about that in a moment. There will be some unexpected expenses that pop up, and you'll find that, your budget's not perfect the first time. Okay. And don't expect it to be. But as you build, the muscles, the mental muscles in creating a budget each month, you're going to really start to realize that at the end of the month, you're going to find a lot more money that you can put towards paying off debt or, building that emergency fund that I keep on talking about, right? So it's a true key to success when it comes to your financial freedom. All right. Other things about budgeting, other things that it kind of helps with, it helps to reduce stress, financial stress, because you know where your money's going. You're aware of it. And once you're aware of it, you can take action to correct it, right? And to get that stress out of your life. It'll help you pay off your debt faster, because as I mentioned a moment ago, you're going to find some extra money at the end of each month. So you can use that extra money to pay off debt. You can use it to build that emergency fund, and it'll also help with making you a mindful consumer. Remember, that is another key to the Unshackled for Life mindset. Being a mindful consumer, being aware of what you're consuming, and making informed decisions when you decide to purchase something. So this budget, it's really a key to financial success. All right. So let's talk about how to budget. All right. At first, budgeting might come across as something that is, it might seem daunting at first, but once you do it a couple of times, you'll really start to realize it's not that bad. All right. And there's so many different ways to budget, but at the end of the day, it's the same process. You're basically comparing what comes in to what's going out, and you're just figuring out where your money is going. That's the key to this whole budgeting thing. All right. So here's some real simple steps to create a budget. Again, this is not that complicated when you just sit down and do it. All right. Budget shouldn't take too long to put on paper or put inside of an app or whatever. All right. Might take a moment setting it up at first, but once you get going each month, it'll get faster and faster. All right. So here we go. Steps to creating a budget. First thing I want you to write down on your paper, if you're doing it on paper, or the first thing that you should have on your spreadsheet, is income. All right. You want to list all of your income sources. So, think of things like, whatever your paycheck is, whether you get paid weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Budgeting can be complicated for those who don't get paid on a regular basis. That is a different, that can become a different creature, because you need to start, averaging out what you make and start kind of planning for what would happen if there's a shortfall. That gets a lot of complicated. That can get pretty complicated. But talking to those people who get paid weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, you just want to list what your income sources are. If you work, no matter how many jobs you work, but just kind of list out what you typically make in that month. We're just looking at dollars here, all right? So once you have that, you're then going to sit down and think about all of your fixed expenses. So fixed expenses are usually things like car note, rent or mortgage, insurance payments. If you have, if you're looking at if you can include your credit card debts in this if you want to, think of what their minimums are, what the debt, what your credit card minimum payments are. You can use that if you want to. All right. And once you have your fixed expenses written down, you want to think about your variable expenses, things that change each month. So things like your electricity, the cost of gas, entertainment, depending on what your entertainment situation is. But look at things that change and fluctuate each month, and just start thinking about what the average is of those, and you can kind of start including those things in as well. And then another thing you might want to do, you might want to think about unexpected expenses. So kind of building in an emergency fund in your budget. Okay. So, if you come up with all your expenses totaling $3,500 a month, you might want to add on, you might want to give yourself a few $100s, maybe $200 or $300 at the end of the month for unexpected expenses. All right. Because things will pop up, and that's okay. It's okay. All right. Now, once you have your expenses listed out, the next thing you want to do is compare your income to your expenses. All right. To your outgo, basically. So while you're doing that, what you're looking for is you're trying to figure out where your money's going. Hopefully, you'll have some money at the end of the month. If you don't have money at the end of the month and those expenses are far outweighing your income, then that's telling you, that's a sign, young people. That's a sign that it's time to start cutting back in certain areas. So that's when you can start getting into how you're going to, fix your finances, basically. So start thinking about what things can you cut out, what things, what can you possibly do to make a little extra income. Side jobs are great. A lot of people do things like Uber and what's it called, food, DoorDash and stuff like that. Those things are all awesome. All right, easy ways to make quick money. Next, once you've actually, now that we talked about the easiness, because that's pretty much what budgeting is. It's just comparing the income to the outgo. Once you have that budget, you can you can really start honing in those finances. Really start figuring out where money can go, where you can take money from. Start canceling those. We talk about like unnecessary subscriptions. Start canceling some of those. These are some. Let me stop for a moment. Let me pause and let me talk about things that often bust people's budgets. All right. So there are certain budget busters, and these are just things that pop up and people don't, they're easy to forget about, but they're things that'll start to mess up your budget. So take it from me. I've made a few budgets, and these are things I can relate to all of these as being, as being things that have taken away and kind of messed my monthly budget up. And that's okay too. But things that often come up, subscription services. All right. Especially those annual subscription services. Like, Amazon Prime. They luckily for me, mine always hits like the beginning of the year. So it's always like January's first or second or something. Like it's something I always know is coming up at the beginning of the year. But be prepared for those subscriptions, especially those annual ones. All right. So streaming services, uh doorbell camera services that come up every year. There's a lot of things that pop up. So just kind of be aware of those subscriptions. Gifts and holidays, those things should not be a surprise, but they always are. Holidays will pop up. Birthdays of friends and relatives pop up. So you want to have a little bit of money set to the side. I kind of talked about having that extra category for unexpected expenses. That those things should be easily covered by a couple $100 left to the side each month. Um, Things that happen, whether it's your kids' school or pets, just unexpected activities that might pop up. How many times if you have children, have they come and say, hey, there's a field trip next week, it costs $40, you know, and you gotta try to find that money for them so they can go and enjoy themselves. Uh, Car maintenance, parking tolls, things related to your vehicles, car registration, things like that might pop up. So be aware of those. Medical expenses. There's definitely a lot of things that can pop up that might derail your budget. All right, home repairs. Just like that with medical stuff, like home repairs. Something might fail at home and you got to fix it. So things like that, those unexpected expenses, they don't have to be budget busters because my hope is that you will have an emergency fund so that when things like that pop up, you're ready for them. And if you're budgeting a couple of $100 each month to cover unexpected things, kind of build that in, you'll probably be all right for the most part. All right. So just kind of be aware of those things and take those things into consideration. All right. Next, free budgeting tools. Let's talk about where you can do your budget. I have notebooks with monthly budgets written in them, so I can go back and I'm old school. I used to like writing my monthly budget just in a regular composition book, and I would just write it out, list everything I expected to come up that month, and I would have a page or two dedicated to each month's budget. But nowadays, a lot of people are more technologically advanced. So there's all kinds of apps you can find on your, on the phone and on your computer to help you save time with doing all the math and, just kind of helps you keep that list, and it's easy to recreate it each month. So I'm just going to go through the names of a few apps. I've used a couple of these, but not all of these. But you can look through them. You can look them up on your own and try to find one that fits you. So again, I'm a huge fan of Dave Ramsey. The Ramsey Solutions Company. They have one called Every Dollar. That's supposed to be a great app. I believe it is. I mean, like I said, just being a fan of Dave Ramsey, and he's the one who kind of taught me how to create a good budget. So that app is designed by him and his team, and I'm sure it's great. All right. there's another one called Good Budget. There's an app called Mint. I used to use Mint back in the day. Mint was really cool because you're basically tracking your expenses. You're tracking, I was tracking my investments along with my spending, and it was pretty cool to see, just to kind of see everything in one place. Um, it can seem a little unnerving that you're putting so much of your personal information into that one app, but it worked for me back when I used it. Now, other free things, there are, you can go to like Google Sheets, and I mean, Google is free. You go to Google Sheets, and when you look in the templates, there's actually one for budgeting. And it's pretty cool. Like there's a lot of, it's just a regular spreadsheet, and it has a lot of categories, including categories that you might, that people might often overlook. So I like that. I kind of wish I knew about that back when I was, starting out with this, because it's a pretty cool little spreadsheet, and it's digital, so it's kind of cool. And if you're old school like me and you like pen and paper, but you want to find some sort of template, you can find that as well online. You can just go to Google and type in, printable budget forms or something like that. And you'll find some good pen and paper budgeting tools that you can use that way as well. So, there really is no excuse at the end of the day for why you should not be budgeting, right? It just takes a little bit of time to sit down and to actually do it. And once you have it going, like it's easy, you guys. It just becomes an extra, just an extra process that you do in your in your monthly routine. It doesn't need to take a whole day. It doesn't need to take an hour. It's probably going to take 15 minutes. And once you're really good at it, you'll probably not have it knocked out in 10 minutes. So just something to think about. All right. So, in closing, what I'm going to say is, we've talked about budgeting, why it's important. As I said earlier, it is truly the key to personal, to financial freedom. You can't have financial freedom without knowing where your money is going. So this budgeting it's the key. It's the main piece, the main foundation to getting control of your finances and really getting to know where your money's going. And if you need to really work to make more money, because sometimes that happens. You might have something pop up. You're like, man, I really need to find a way to make another $1,500. And you can go find a side gig or do a side gig for a little bit. Doesn't have to be permanent, but just enough to pay off whatever it is that you're budgeting for. Let's see, what else? I think that's it, everybody. I really do. So we've discussed why it's important. We've discussed why it's how to make a good budget. And my hope is that we will practice budgeting so that we can be financially free. All right. I want you guys to unlock prosperity and liberate wealth. Budgeting, guys. Budgeting. It's how we do it. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Please feel free to check us out on any of our social media. Also, you can look us up. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have our website, www.unshackledforlife.com. All right. Peace and love, everybody. Talk to you next time.